We're here with Michael Craig Martin at the Royal Academy for your solo show here. I read your first solo show, was back in 1969.
Yes, quite a long time ago. And there's work here that was in that show, and there's work that was even earlier than that. The earliest work is from 1967.
Mm-hmm. I see first room, we see some amazing sculpture, which we'll come on to. I see a lot of graphic design, black and white. We then move into colour. But a theme that I feel throughout all of your work is humour. There's so much fun and playful joy about everything.
Well, I've always tried to do, I consider that what I'm doing is basically very serious, but the best way to address things that are very serious is with humour, because you can get across something that if you treated it only seriously would put people off, whereas if you use a little humour, you can bring people and you can engage people in a better way.
This gallery in particular, it's such a royal, regal space. To see such playful works on display, it has a nice juxtaposition.
It's often said that these galleries in the Royal Academy are the most beautiful in Britain, and some people say they're most beautiful in Europe. And having had the opportunity to hang my own work, just my own work, in these galleries, they are really incredible rooms. This is this is the largest gallery, and it is an amazing room. The proportions are beautiful. Everything about it is suited to scene paintings perfectly.
You've seen technology change quite dramatically through your life. How have you embraced that through your art and through your work?
From the very beginning, I've always thought it was important to deal with the things of ordinary life and the things of contemporary life. And part of that, it's not just in the images or the objects that I draw or that I use, but also in the changes of technologies, changes of what's possible. I've always tried to keep up with it. So when the computer first became available, particularly for being able to do image making on computer, I was there right at the beginning. And what I do in every system is extremely simple. I don't do anything weird or fancy, and they've made all these applications more and more elaborate in what you can do. I use absolutely none of it. I only use the most basic thing that I did 25 years ago. But I do each technology gives a different kind of opportunity. And the great thing for me in this exhibition has been, I was asked to do an immersive work, and I'd never done an immersive work. And then, but I said yes, and I produced the work here called Cosmos, which it's 20 minutes long. It has a musical score, and I absolutely love it myself. I'm amazed by how it's turned out. And it seems fantastic to me. I'm 83 years old, and I've done something in the latest, it's really state-of-the-art technology.
I see music in a lot of pieces. There's some headphones behind us here. There's cassettes. There's Spotify mentioned in one of your pieces from 2017. How much is music part of your creating process?
The music is it's so much a part of the contemporary world. Through all my life, music has been, I grew up in the 50s with the beginning of rock and roll, and it's been there throughout my whole life. And the world of music is a defining characteristic of contemporary life.
When we are in this room and the one next door where we've got these gorgeous objects, how does some of these pictures start? Does it start with the object? Do you start with the colour? How do these begin?
Every object is drawn. I've drawn every object individually, which I started doing in 1978, and some of the images that you see were drawn in 1978, and in the immersive work, there's images that were drawn this year. And I draw the same way now as I did then, so I can mix the images. I can use images from the past along with images that have just been made, because they have the same feel. And so to make a complex composition, I use these existing images like templates. You'll see the same image repeated over and over again in work. That was always my idea. If I drew a safety pin, I drew it once. Once you've drawn the safety pin, why try to draw it again? I just used the same drawing of the safety pin whenever I wanted to use the safety pin. And so to make a composition, I start by bringing images together. Sometimes I start with them colored, sometimes I don't. And then gradually, as they come together, then you start to build the kind of color world. Each work is a kind of color world. And as soon as you start to use certain dominant colors, the others kind of fall into place.
There's a piece next door, you created it in 2004, and it's like a repainting of an artist from like the late 1800s. They're by the side of the river, and there's factories and industrial.
Yes.
When you looked at that initially, do you start to then put your colours and do you look at other artworks and think, okay, how could I recreate this?
Yes, there's a whole wall of paintings in one of the galleries where I've basically done versions of classic paintings. The one you're referring to is the Seurat Bathers, which is in the National Gallery. I've done three Manets and one Velázquez. And I can only do it if I really love the work by somebody else. And they're tributes to these things. And also, I see myself as part of a historical continuum of Western art, Western painting. It really starts in the Renaissance. And so connecting back and forth seems to me to be the right thing to do. And also, I would hope that maybe in my version of the work, that makes other people go back to the original work and have another look, because just because they're from the past, it doesn't mean they're not relevant today.
That one in particular was on the library wall when I grew up. So the local library, that picture, it was a huge mural of that picture. So to see it recreated now, 30 years later, for me, it's quite...
Well, that's one of the things that I feel very much about everything that I do. In a sense, I use images of objects which are ordinary. Even more important than that they're ordinary is that they're familiar. And what you're saying to me is that painting was familiar to you and you responded to it in a way that was different than to the other ones. That's the one you noticed because that was the one that rang a bell. And I hope that everything in these galleries, there's things everywhere that will ring a bell with different people.
Which makes me warm to pictures like this behind you that I've seen a few times, and a couple of your other images that are regularly here at the summer show, because I can relate to a trainer, a briefcase, a set of headphones, but the colours and then the touch that you put on it, I guess I'm looking at it, but it feels like I'm connected to it anyway.
That's my whole idea is that people carry with them a great deal of both understanding of images, but also a feeling about them. So there's, I once had somebody say to me, I'd done a painting where there were maybe 15 objects in it, and the person said, I really love this painting, but I just hate the ice tray. Well, why would anybody hate an ice tray? But that person hated the ice tray, and it ruined the picture for them. So people have very strong emotional attachments, both positive and negative, to certain images. And these paintings kind of bring that out.
Around this room, certainly, and I don't know about any others. I mean, I don't see any trees. One of your famous works is right in the front door, which is an interpretive tree piece. Have you painted much scenery outdoors?
I've never painted. No, I've never done that. But in the last couple of years, during COVID, when we were restricted to where we could go, where we could shop, the only place to go was the supermarket. And I had never drawn fruit and vegetables or flowers, but going in COVID, when that was the only place you could go, I suddenly got interested. And because one of the things I realized, I draw essentially manufactured, man-made objects, the objects of our time that we make. But then I looked at the fruit and I thought, we've doctored all these pears and apples and oranges. They didn't all start like bananas. We've kind of invented these. The ones that are familiar to us have all been modified to be what we want them to be. The vegetables are the same thing. These vegetables are not just natural. We've manipulated them, so they're in a sense almost as manufactured as as iPhones and other things. And I did the same with the flowers, because there's the immersive work uses the flowers. There's about 10 flowers that you find in the supermarket. They're all cut flowers. They're grown in hundreds of millions every year. We've created these flowers. We've basically created the flowers that are familiar to us, and so those are the ones that I use.
When we walk in the front door, there's a lot of text on the wall, and it's a transcription of an interview that you did about your piece of work many years ago that caused a bit of a stir. Was that an amusing interview for you? Was it
It's not an interview, a real interview. It's a dialogue. It's part of the work. Okay. The work consists of the objects, which is the glass of water on the shelf, and then there's the text which went with it. And the text is in the form of an interview, but it's with myself, and it is me as maker and believer, and me as audience and skeptic. So when you read it, you're reading both the maker's point of view and the audience view, but both the person who believes I've changed a glass of water into an oak tree and those who find that difficult to accept.
As a viewer, it's touching, it's humorous, and it's very enjoyable.
Good.
As is all of your work, I'd say, as a summary. Yeah, it's warming, it's familiar, and it's uplifting. So thanks very much for bringing such a bold collection here, and good luck with the show.
Thank you very, very much. Thank you.
Thank you.